The fog that settled over the Yarikawa prefecture was not the gentle mist of early autumn. It was a suffocating, heavy shroud that smelled of ozone and crushed stone. For 3 days, the birds had refused to sing. For 3 days, the horses in the stables had kicked at their stalls, their eyes rolling back in primal terror, sensing a predator that had no place in the natural order of the island. The peasants spoke in hushed, trembling whispers of a Green Oni, a demon the size of a siege tower that had fallen from the heavens not with the grace of a star, but with the violence of a curse. They said it did not eat, it did not sleep, and it did not speak. It only destroyed. Entire swaths of the bamboo forest had been flattened, not cut by axes, but snapped like dry twigs under the weight of an invisible calamity. Jin Sakai, the Ghost of Tsushima, rode into this cursed fog with a heavy heart. He had seen the horrors of war. He had walked through fields of the dead at Komoda Beach and had waded through the blood of his own countrymen to drive the Mongols back. But the devastation he found as he ventured deeper into old Yarikawa was different. It lacked the precision of an army. There were no tracks of wagons, no spent arrows, no burned corpses. There was only raw, elemental destruction. Massive boulders, centuries old, had been pulverized into dust. Trees were uprooted and thrown hundreds of yards, landing upside down like javelins thrown by a god. The ground itself was scarred with footprints that were too large to be human, too deep to be an animal, sinking inches into the hard-packed earth. He dismounted near the ruins of a logging camp, instructing his horse, Nobu, to stay back. The animal was shivering, its coat slick with a cold sweat. Jin could feel it too, a vibration in the air, a low-frequency hum that rattled his teeth. It was the sound of rage, pure, distilled, radioactive rage. He moved on foot, his hand resting on the hilt of his katana, the Sakai steel cold and reassuring against his palm. He checked his pouches, kunai, sticky bombs, smoke bombs, and a potent neurotoxin derived from wolfsbane flowers. He was prepared for men. He was prepared for spirits. He was not prepared for what lay ahead. The clearing ahead was illuminated by a strange, sickly green luminescence that seemed to pulse from the veins of the creature itself. It sat hunched over near the riverbank, splashing water onto its face. It was a mountain of muscle, a grotesquerie of anatomy that defied all logic. Its skin was the color of moss and jade, thick and leathery, stretched tight over veins that looked like pythons. It wore only the tattered remains of strange violet-colored trousers. Its back was a landscape of scars and ridges, heaving with every breath like a bellows fanning a forge. Jin stepped onto a fallen log, his silhouette stark against the fog. "You are far from your mountain, demon," Jin's voice rang out, steady and commanding, though his instincts screamed at him to run. The creature stopped moving. The water dripped from its massive hands, hitting the river stones with heavy splats. It turned its head slowly. The face was a nightmare. A heavy, protruding brow, a jaw like a steel trap, and eyes that burned with a green fire, filled not with the calculated malice of a Mongol, but with the confused, defensive fury of a cornered beast. "Leave Hulk alone," the creature grunted. The voice sounded like boulders grinding together deep underground. It was a primitive attempt at speech, thick and distorted. "You have destroyed the forest," Jin replied, drawing his katana. The metal sang as it cleared the scabbard, the blade reflecting the eerie green light. "You have terrorized my people. I am the protector of this island. You will leave or you will be buried here." The Hulk stood up. As he rose, he kept rising, towering over Jin, blocking out the moonlight. He snorted, a blast of air that stirred the dust at Jin's feet. "Puny man, go away." "I am no man," Jin whispered, slipping into the ghost stance. "I am the shadows." Jin initiated the combat with a sudden explosion of motion. He threw a smoke bomb at the beast's feet. Poof! The thick, gray, sulfurous cloud engulfed the monster instantly. Jin moved into the smoke, his footsteps silent. He circled to the creature's left, aiming for the massive tendon behind the knee. A strike there would cripple a horse. It should at least slow this giant down. Jin struck. His katana slashed through the smoke, biting into the green flesh. It felt like hitting a tire made of iron. The blade sliced the skin, drawing a line of glowing green blood, but it did not sever the muscle. The density of the creature's tissue was incomprehensible. Jin's arm jarred from the impact. The Hulk roared, a sound that was more shock than pain. He swung a massive backhand blindly into the smoke. Jin ducked, feeling the wind of the fist ruffle his hair. The displacement of air was so violent it cleared the smoke instantly. Jin rolled backward, coming up in a crouch. "Fast, bug," Hulk growled, looking at the trickle of green blood on his leg. He looked angry now. The confusion was fading, replaced by the rising tide of adrenaline. Hulk charged. He didn't run with technique, he ran with the momentum of a landslide. He tore up the earth with every step, closing the distance in a heartbeat. He raised both fists for a hammer blow. Jin realized he could not block. To block was to die. He sidestepped at the last possible microsecond, the heavy fists slamming into the ground where he had stood. Boom! The impact created a crater 10 feet wide. The shockwave knocked Jin off his balance, sending him skidding through the mud. Rocks and debris rained down on him. Jin scrambled up, coughing. The sheer power was terrifying. This creature didn't just hit hard, it hit with the force of a natural disaster. Jin shifted into the water stance, fluid and reactive. He needed to be water. He needed to flow around the rock. Hulk lunged again, a clumsy but devastating haymaker. Jin weaved under the arm and unleashed a flurry of strikes. Slash, slash, thrust. He cut the Hulk's ribs, his bicep, his forearm. The Sakai steel was sharp enough to cut the atoms of the air, and it managed to carve shallow ravines into the Hulk's skin. Green blood began to splatter the mud. The Hulk howled. The pain was annoying, stinging like a swarm of hornets. He clapped his hands together. Doom! The sonic boom generated by the thunderclap hit Jin like a physical wall. It ruptured his eardrums, sending a high-pitched ringing through his skull. It lifted him off his feet and threw him backward into a bamboo thicket. Jin crashed through the stalks, the wood shattering around him, and hit a rock with a bone-jarring thud. Jin gasped, tasting copper. His vision swam. He shook his head, forcing focus back into his mind. He is strong, too strong, but he bleeds. If he bleeds, he can die. Jin reached for his blowgun. He loaded a dart coated in the deadly wolfsbane poison, a toxin that caused hallucinations and rapid muscle paralysis in men. He fired. The dart struck the Hulk in the neck, burying itself in the thick muscle. Hulk swatted at his neck, pulling the tiny dart out. He looked at it, confused. Then, he blinked. His steps faltered. The poison was coursing through his massive system. He shook his head, growling, stumbling sideways and smashing into a tree, snapping it in half. Head, noise, Hulk mumbled, clutching his temples. Jin seized the opportunity. He sprinted forward, drawing his short sword, the tanto, in his left hand to complement his katana. He leaped onto a boulder and launched himself into the air, aiming for the creature's eyes. But the poison worked differently on the Hulk. It didn't paralyze him. It accelerated his metabolism. It made his heart beat faster. It made the rage burn hotter. Hulk's eyes snapped open, glowing brighter than before. The green veins on his neck pulsed violently as his body burned through the toxin in seconds. He caught Jin in midair. One massive hand wrapped around Jin's entire torso. The grip was crushing. Jin felt his armor plates cracking, his ribs groaning under the pressure. "No more tricks!" Hulk roared, spitting saliva. Hulk threw Jin. He didn't just toss him, he pitched him like a baseball. Jin flew through the air, crashing through the roof of a derelict tea house 50 yards away. He smashed through the thatch, through the wooden beams, and slammed into the floorboards, breaking through them into the crawlspace below. Dust and debris settled over the ruins. For a moment, there was silence. Then, from the wreckage, the ghost emerged. Jin dragged himself out of the hole. His mask was cracked down the middle. His left shoulder pauldron was torn off. He was bleeding from a gash on his forehead, the blood blinding his left eye. He was broken, battered, but his spirit was forged in the fires of invasion. He would not stay down. The Hulk was stomping toward the ruins, tearing up the ground, looking for the little man. Jin sheathed his katana, He closed his eyes for a heartbeat, centering his chi. He focused on the wrath of the storms, the speed of the lightning. "Heavenly strike," Jin whispered. He drew his blade. He moved faster than the eye could track. He became a blur of motion, a streak of death cutting through the rain. He closed the distance to the Hulk instantly, his blade glowing with spiritual energy. He slashed diagonally across the Hulk's chest. It was a perfect cut. It carved deep, slicing through the thick pectoral muscle, grazing the ribs, and opening a wound 2 feet long. A geyser of green blood erupted, coating Jin's armor. The Hulk staggered back. He looked down at his chest. He saw the bone. He saw the blood flowing like a river. The pain was real this time. It was agonizing. Hulk fell to one knee, clutching his chest. He gasped, his breath wheezing. Jin stood before him, sword raised, ready for the killing blow. He stepped in, aiming for the throat, but he had made a fatal miscalculation. He assumed the beast played by the rules of biology. He assumed that pain led to weakness. For the Hulk, pain was fuel. As Jin brought the sword down, Hulk's eyes didn't dim. They ignited. The wound on his chest began to steam. The flesh started to knit together, the cells regenerating at a visible, terrifying speed. The muscles swelled, growing larger, harder. Hulk caught the katana blade with his bare hand. The sharp steel cut into his palm, but he didn't care. He squeezed. Crack! The Sakai katana, the blade that had saved Tsushima, shattered. The top half of the blade snapped off, falling uselessly into the mud. Jin stared at his broken sword handle, his eyes wide with horror. Hulk stood up. He was bigger now, angrier. The wound on his chest was already a scar. "Hulk! Smash!" Hulk didn't punch Jin. He clapped his hands on either side of Jin's head. The impact was like having a grenade go off inside his skull. Jin's helmet shattered. His vision went instantly black. He crumpled to the ground, unconscious before he even hit the mud. Hulk stood over the fallen samurai. He raised his foot to crush the little man into paste. He cast a shadow over the broken body of the ghost, but he stopped. Through the red haze of his rage, something reached him. He looked at the broken sword. He looked at the man who had stood his ground against a monster, who had drawn blood when no one else could. He saw the lack of fear, even at the end. "Warrior," Hulk grunted, the word feeling strange on his tongue. Hulk lowered his foot. He breathed heavily, the steam rising from his skin into the cold night air. The rage began to subside, leaving only a deep, melancholic exhaustion. He was tired of fighting. He was tired of hurting things. Hulk looked around at the destroyed forest, the ruined tea house. He knew he couldn't stay here. The little men would keep coming. They would bring more sharp sticks. The Green Oni turned away from Jin Sakai. He crouched low, his massive leg muscles coiling like springs. With a grunt of exertion, he launched himself into the air. He leaped miles into the sky, a green comet arcing over the mountains, disappearing into the dark clouds toward the desolate peaks of Mount Jogaku, seeking a place where he could be alone. Hours later, the rain began to wash the green blood from the mud. Jin Sakai stirred. He groaned, rolling onto his back. Every bone in his body felt fractured. His head pounded with the rhythm of a war drum. He reached for his sword, but his hand found only the broken hilt. He lay there in the ruins, looking up at the sky. He had lost. He had failed to stop the beast. But as he looked at the footprints leading away, footprints that walked away from him instead of through him, he realized something else. The beast had spared him. Jin Sakai closed his eyes, letting the rain clean the blood from his face. The ghost had learned a lesson tonight. There were storms in this world that could not be cut. There were forces that could only be endured. And somewhere high in the mountains, the Green Oni was watching and waiting.